is JailynCof, and today I'd like to start off by giving you guys a little bit of background about inequality and discrimination. In the dictionary, discrimination is defined as making a distinction in favor of or against a person or thing based on the group, class, or category that which the person or thing belongs to, rather than on individual merit. Discrimination then leads to unequal treatment to those who are discriminated against. During the civil rights movement, there are clear signs of discrimination against minorities, especially in the education system. The Constitutional Rights Foundation brought to my attention the Jim Crow laws. These laws enforce segregation by saying it's separate but equal. Separate schools are created for white Americans and blacks, which included every ethnicity other than whites. The schools for minorities didn't receive the same funding as the white schools, and they were more impacted, and they weren't being taught the same material because of these laws enforcing segregation and discrimination. Minorities fought for equality. Many people believe that minorities are treated equal today, but that assumption is not true, especially in the school systems. This brings me to my main claim that inequalities are still seen in school systems today. The first point I have is the lack of equal support lowers the chances of minorities graduating high school or attending college. Teachers show students of color less positivity and encouragement that white students are shown. A 2012 study from the American Sociological Association found substantial scholarly evidence indicates that teachers, especially white teachers, evaluate black students' behaviors and academic potential more negatively than those of white students. The Center for American Progress found that African American students and Hispanic students are more likely to get sorted into less competitive education tracks. Teachers having these low expectations for minorities lower their chances of reaching their full potential in schools. The negative evaluations of minorities' behaviors lead to extreme punishments. According to U.S. Education Department's 2011 and 2012 Civil Rights Data Collection, black students are suspended or expelled at triple the rate of their white peers. One study by Professor Skiba from the University of Indiana suggests that there is little evidence that black children exhibit higher rates of actual deviance than white children. That suggests that cultural causation, where a largely white teaching corps may be applying hidden prejudice in discipline. He says, we have teachers telling us that there are different forms of white defiance and black defiance, and they are bothered more by black defiance. There is no positive outcome from out-of-school suspension. This causes students to fall behind in their classes and can ultimately cause them to drop out. Sometimes schools turn to the police, who then arrest kids for minor infractions, treating them as criminals instead of young students who need support. This lack of support and unequal treatment could negatively impact these students' lives. Minority students receive less educational opportunities. Across the country, we are spending less on students of color than on white students, at least when it comes to state and local dollars. The Center for American Press gave some data showing inequalities between schools with majority white students and schools with minority students. Across the country, schools spent $334 more on every white student than on every non-white student. Mostly white schools, 90% or more white, spent $733 more per student than mostly non-white schools. United States spend $293 less per year on students in mostly non-white schools than on students in other schools. That's 7% of the median per pupil spending. With the unequal spending between these schools shows the discrimination of minorities in education. Minorities have less access to credible, licensed teachers and college prep classes. According to comprehensive data released last year by the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights, racial minorities are more likely than white students to be suspended from school, to have less access to rigorous math, science classes, and to be taught by lower paid teachers with less experience. A quarter of high schools with the highest percentage of Black and Latino students do not offer any Algebra 2 courses, while a third of those schools do not have any chemistry classes. Black students are more than 4 times as likely as white students, and Latino students are twice as likely to attend schools where 1 out of every 5 teachers do not meet all state teaching requirements, which bring me back to my main claim that inequalities are still seen today in today's school system.
Gesundheit. All right, the background on discrimination is fine. Your proposition's clearly stated. There's no preview of what the secondary points are going to be. You just kind of start in on the first point immediately. The first point, I think, needs to be stated more clearly as a claim. I could pick out some other things that sound like they're going to be other secondary claims, but you never have a numerical signpost for them. They're never really labeled, and it just feels a little bit like you've wandered into those topics instead of you're building a foundation for your arguments. So I think you need to be a little bit more aggressive about establishing a structure in the body of the speech. The strong point in the speech is the statistical evidence that you have on a variety of subjects, the amount of money that gets spent on various groups, the access to different kinds of courses and classes. I thought you did a good job on that. There might be a need for an argument as to why those patterns exist, whether it is what is de jure discrimination or de facto discrimination. I think there's probably a difference in those kinds of things, and this sounds like it's just financial resources as opposed to a deliberate decision. Although you did have one section where you are making an argument that says that the instructors themselves track these students into these particular categories, and also on the not detention, expulsion issue, there seems to be something that's a little bit more overt on that. But all the cost issues and all the classroom issues, that seems to be financially based, and I think you could have a little bit more explanation of what's going on there. The presentation is problematic. There's just a lot of reading. You basically don't look at the audience at all. You read the whole thing. And since we're going to be talking about reading, and I just want to make a little comment about it, because it's a pet peeve I learned back in my sophomore year in high school, and I got in trouble for it, and I've always, now whenever I hear somebody do the same thing I did, I always want to point it out. Core is the word, not corpse. Okay? Like you said, teaching corpse. Teaching corpse is a dead teacher. All right? Teaching corpse. I know it looks like corpse. That's just the way it's pronounced. I got the same comment, the Marine Corps. A Marine Corps is a dead Marine. You don't say that, that's wrong. All right.